Arkansas has adopted a ban on transgender healthcare for children. It's called the Save Adolescents for Experimentation Act, or SAFE Act. It was a vote by legislators that overrides Governor Asa Hutchinson's earlier veto of the bill, which he described as a vast government overreach. Don't like the name, SAFE Act. I don't know. Somewhat transphobic in a sense, or anti-LGBT, or self-determination. Of course, the issue is, honey, I know you like Billy, but that's called statutory rape, so you won't be seeing him anymore for 5 or 10 years. That's kind of the reality of the situation that I think, as someone who's pro-LGBTQ, you have to consider is the self-determination of children. That's what I want to talk about. And I want to even read what I wrote when I wrote this. And I kind of wrote this because I had to. It's way too serious for me to talk off the cuff about. I think there's a lot to discuss here. But background of it, the law essentially bars healthcare professionals from providing gender-affirming care, including surgery, puberty blockers, and hormone therapy to anyone under the age of 18. Physicians are also banned from referring minors to other professionals for such care. I think people should be able to make their own healthcare choices. They should be able to wear masks or not wear masks, but in public places where it's required, you should appease the rules of or follow the rules of the private businesses. And in public spaces, you should do as you want. At home, you should do as you please. The idea that the government shut down businesses because they didn't trust people for following these rules, like they're just going to go places and businesses are going to let them in because they want the money, so we're just going to stop the businesses, they have nowhere to go. That was the plan. They didn't trust people. It's very anti-Roe versus Wade, very anti-giving power to the people. And in this sense, there's this personification of like an inanimate object, but normally children don't have this ability for consent. But here we are. So this is what I wrote, and I hope you just take a second to listen. I'm not going to look directly at camera. I didn't write this as a speech to keep looking up, so I apologize if I look down, but I just want to get it right. I think people should be able to make choices for themselves and their healthcare. I thought shutting down a business by government during the pandemic a telltale sign of the hypocrisy of big government, that people can't make health decisions for themselves, so they make sure that they have nowhere to go. The problem here is with consent. 99% of children are schizophrenic. Let me explain. My uncle is surrounded by men in white coats on a daily basis at a facility because he believes he's the Dalai Lama, despite being Irish Catholic. It's true. If we indulge every whim of a child as reality to the point that denying a child any self-identification they have at any one point in time is a crime, punishable by law, we are in serious peril as a society. I was a cowboy. I was Superman. Maybe I even wanted to be Supergirl. It's possible. The point is, my parents did not box me in to one fixation at any one point in time. They let me remain fluid. And the only difference here is that we're talking about something that involves sexuality. The trans-abled community, for example, has been completely ignored and railroaded, I think unsupported by the LGBT community. This group believes that they were born to be disabled. And the mental health association with that of this is craziness, like you cut your arm off because you believe you're supposed to have no arm, doesn't parse well with the LGBT, particularly the transgender community, in terms of the support from everyday people in society. So they just ignore them. And that's unfortunate. But applying this association here, I think, is very apropos. Outside of every other thing a child wants, really, I want ice cream for dinner. Don't care. I think I should have that bubble gum. You're allergic to bubble gum. I want to try it, Mom. Sorry, can't do that. But for this, it's child abuse. Parents can be thrown in jail. Children can be removed from the home. At least in Canada. It's happened here. This is a problem. This is a serious, serious problem because every other law we have in terms of consent doesn't apply to this. So let me continue. Postmodernism explains gender, sex, race as social constructs that aren't real. Thaddeus Russell, Occidental College professor of gender studies, would agree with this. He even criticizes the trans community now as being very binary in terms of you're a man or a woman, that's how you were born, even if you were born in the wrong body. He says, no, that's not the way it is. You were born as nothing. You can be anything you want. He doesn't like the binary aspect of self-determination, that there was a prerequisite to X or Y. I should have been X. I was born in the wrong body. He's like, you weren't born wrong at all. Blank slate. his perception. Some people call that transphobic, but that doesn't make any sense in terms of nomenclature. It's like he's not transphobic. He's not afraid of trans people. The things we take on as anything that's transphobic is anything you say against a possible hypothetical absolute in terms of the protection of that individual group in society. That's somewhat offensive to possibly anyone, even though there's no formal ordained rules as to what's offensive or what's acceptable. That's weird, right? But that's the way we are. So phobic is hate. It's like it implies ignorance or something. It's not necessarily the case. I think the standard of care in the transgender community is to adhere to a rigid, superficial construct of what it means to be a man or a woman. The superficial traits, long hair, breasts, beard, muscles, these things, right? To impose this on a child is tantamount to my parents pulling me out of kindergarten so I can fulfill my dream of being a cowboy in a dude ranch. I respect and admire the transgender community, but I don't think it's transphobic to be concerned about making the right medical choices for children, just as I don't believe it's homophobic for transgender treatment to be the first thought when a child expresses feelings of gender dysphoria. Think about that one for a second. Immediately we think of gender dysphoria as a prerequisite for transgender treatment, hormone therapy, sex changes, top surgery, bottom surgery, all these things. But there's a growing, there are studies, and there's just anecdotal stories of gay men, straight men that have had gender dysphoria that just grew out of it. Imagine being misdiagnosed as transgender and going through all that and being really confused, like this was wrong, or that the idea that you're absolutely transgender if you have gender dysphoria is not homophobic. Well, I don't think that it necessarily is. It's just an opinion, but the idea is still poignant. Like, why can't they just be a gay man or a gay woman? Why can't they just be heterosexual? That's experimenting things, fluid, right? It's almost like I don't know, being bisexual is not a acceptable thing in some way. You get what I mean? Like, you have to be one or the other. Why? Or why do the traits? Why is the panacea for something that's a social construct so superficial in its answer? That is, once we have you on hormones that are like estrogen and testosterone blockers that would give you breasts, that's the cure. Doesn't make sense in some respects to this construct of social conventions of what it means to be X, Y, or Z. And every other way in the LGBTQ community in terms of gender and self-expression, sexuality. It's like it's very fixed. I'm not saying that it's wrong. I'm saying it's hypocritical in some ways. And I think that children, again, should be given some protection. And this is the problem of just passability and hormones and what they do. The theory is you either believe that you can give someone hormones and you can reverse that, or hormone blockers and you just have puberty later and nothing happens. And there's an enormous amount of studies that say that's true, and there's enormous studies that say that's not true. And there's permanent damage. In terms of brain development, those are finite, extemporaneous of hormones. So, 25 years old, things start to become more neuroplasticity in terms of the, the range of neuroplasticity starts to diminish and shorten. Things become more ingrained and permanent. But you put hormones in at these primary developmental stages to say that when there's already a clock that has a finite time. Like people say, smoking marijuana when you're a minor, under the age of 18 is not a good idea in terms of like frontal lobe brain cell development and stuff like that. To just apply something like that, which that's hormonal, it's derivative, it affects, actually it's estrogenic, marijuana is. To apply that to children as minors for legitimate specific hormone therapy to target something to be something they think that they are, and say, well, yes, while a heterosexual male might taking this drug affect his hormone profile permanently, his brain development permanently, doing this would not, because you can just reverse and start later, even though there's a cap at that, there's a point of diminishing return. I'm not a doctor. I'm just saying the argument is not transphobic. It's a healthy argument to have. Because if you're taking everyone after the age of 18 and just saying, do whatever you want, how am I transphobic? I'm very specifically transphobic to children. You want to label me that way? I'm not. I've done so many dumb things in my life. To say that like I wouldn't have done dumb things at 12, I thought my mom's friend was in my mom's friend's car in her driveway. And I was certain once I was in the car that she was waiting for me at the bottom of my hill in my backyard. So I put her mom's car, like 5 years old, 6, brand new Mercedes in neutral, rolled it down my hill and drove it as if it was a toy car into my backyard, crashed into a tree at the bottom of the hill. And I'm the person that's making a decision about my future sex. I don't think so, man. I remember my uncle telling me that LA Gear shoes, the ones that light up, there's something out that kids are getting electrocuted. So on our way to see Sister Act when it was raining, I was so afraid to step into a puddle that I pooped myself. This is what I was thinking. But at this point in time, I can say my parents are being abusive to me because they won't let me be a girl, and then my parents are removed from my home, and I get hormone replacement therapy. But my LA Gear shoes will electrocute me when I step into a puddle. It's like I can have both those thoughts. Both those things are allowed. It's like, well, there are people like, he's kind of retarded. Maybe he shouldn't indulge his gender dysphoria as being actual transgenderism because that guy's this idiot. LA Gear, come on. Maybe I'm just that case where they're just like, his IQ is kind of just the LA Gear shoes thing. Oh my god, it's crazy. You hear him at dinner? What did he say? Well, doctor, he said the waiter asked him how he wanted his burger. Mind you, he's 5. He said he wanted the bun, one bun on the bottom, the meat in the middle, and a bun on top. I don't think this guy's a sound right in mind to say he wants to be a dragon. Yeah, we can't make him a dragon, probably. Not until he gets over that stuff. Does he realize that that's retarded? Medium, rare, does he not know what that is? I don't know. I'm just, see what I mean? Sorry, I don't mean to diminish. Like, the reason I like my show is so many of these topics that we talk about in society are like there's rules. And there's like especially network and corporations. I'm not sponsored by really anyone really, right? DWA, right? All right, that's it. But like, there's no I have nothing to say that's like forced. Like I can't say that or else I'm gonna be cut. Or there's like a $5 million a year job that's at risk if I say. I have nothing. I can just say how I feel, and I don't think that any of it comes from a hateful place or a place of ignorance. I don't know. I may sound discursive at times. I'm talking directly to the camera. There's no teleprompter here. I have a few notes. Sometimes I'm dead on and in fluid. Sometimes I'm not. A little discursive. This is the way it is, right? Everyone's like that. But I feel like, I'm well educated. I'm well read. Not in terms of like trying to be ostentatious or like there's some sort of like hubris or it's just according to society that's what I am. And I don't think my opinion is that much different than certain people that are far more objective. Tulsi Gabbard might agree with things I'm saying, but might be afraid to specifically talk about it on a day-in-day basis because it's so dangerous politically. And in the end, when you're in a position like that, you've worked so hard to get to these spots, there's diminishing returns for just speaking your mind. It's like, what am I trying to do? Earn myself a consulting position at Google after I get out of this politics thing for $10 million a year? Am I trying to speak my mind and be that rebel? Well, I kind of don't want to be in hospice care on a $40,000 a year kind of like annuity. I'd rather have a beach house and have a private Jamaican nurse with great tits in my face when I'm dying. And so you just make that kind of choice. And it's like, there's nothing wrong with that. It's just, you don't have to worry about me like being bought out or saying anything like bigoted in terms of anger or like I'm trying to convince someone for the sake of excellence. Being provocative for the sake of being provocative is stupid. It's effectual. It's not real. It's just, I don't know, man. My childhood was very, not ideal. A lot of privilege, but there's a lot of abusive stuff and horrible things. And I don't think it's fair to diminish the thoughts and feelings of a child at any one point in time when they're expressing their wants. What I'm concerned about is how often those wants change. That's all. Give it 6 months. Give it a year. As a parent, I'm not talking to you in terms of a medical profession or what the standard of care should be. It's like, if you're a parent, your child's experiencing dysphoria, you have months, you have some time, okay? And if these thoughts and feelings all of a sudden pop up at 12 or 13, it's very possible it's a social construct. Again, that the media is pushing, this is now a new thing, and they're taking it on as in vogue or a fad. If they never expressed this before, you have to take that in consideration, that the media or television is influencing them. But if this is reaffirming feelings in terms of a specific identity structure, that this trans, didn't know what that was, but that's what I am. Other than like some sort of, I don't know, what do you call it, hypochondria, right? Like if you see those traits previously in your child, you know your child better than I do, that's something you can talk about. Talk about that with your healthcare professional and your children and whoever else. But you have some time. Don't immediately jump, because you can make the same choice as your 14-year-old daughter can. I want to be a boy. Oh yeah, that's a thing. That's what it is. And you immediately will care about your children, and you want to just do what's best for them. And the older they get, the more respect you have for their opinions. But unfortunately, the more exposed they are to like their cell phones, all the stuff now, what's normal. And it's dangerous. It affects me too. Like the idea that I have to do social media for this, because I enjoy my show and I like to produce it, is I see the dangers in it. I'm sure Joe Rogan does too. Tim Pool, who posts, at one point he's posting 7 days a week, like twice a day, maybe even more. Imagine the amount of editing that goes into that. Just like, I'm posting 7 days a week new content in the morning, the afternoon, evening, live show, and I'm editing like clips for later. It's like this nonstop. And it's like, what is is your life a computer and staring at the screen, or is it like extemporaneous of that? And it's really hard. It's like, I get all my stuff from these, I filter news from websites, and this is my reality. It's very, what is real? I don't know, like, it's like, I get a little meta. Let's move on. I'm